Good morning, everyone. Welcome on this Monday morning to Arnie's Fantasy World of Sports. Lenny, your timing was impeccable as you ended right at 10 o'clock. And here we go. We got a few minutes of some follow up to that. Lenny does such a great job. And, the toughest part of what I do is following him. But hey, somebody's got to do it, and it might as well be me. So we're going to talk just a moment about what's going on in Cleveland, shall we? And we know that Plesac and Clevenger were sent down to the farm due to their choices that they made in terms of not only just going out and putting themselves in a situation where they're not following the rules, but then to not be forthcoming about it. And I think the fact of not being forthcoming about it is what's really got their Indian teammates all out of sorts. Putko said he would not play if the two came back. So they have to stay down now for 10 days from the time they were sent down. And here's something that I want to talk about this morning, and chat room and on StreamYard, give me some feedback on this. Cleveland in the last 2 years, they've traded Trevor Bauer midseason. They traded away Corey Kluber off-season. And it would not surprise me with the reaction and the fallout amongst the players if Clevenger and Plesac were dealt prior to the trade deadline, which now is in a couple of weeks. So I was reading and following, and here is a possible landing spot: New York. The Yankees have not only pitching prospects, they have hitters. They've got Andujar, who just seems to be lost somewhere in New York. They've got King in the bullpen. They've got Schmidt on the farm. They've got J.A. Happ, who pitched a really good game last night. And there's something going on between J. Happ and Boone in New York. So it wouldn't surprise me to see the Yankees package up a deal which included J. Happ, which included a couple of young bats, maybe Mike Ford, maybe Miguel Andujar, and sent to Cleveland, and you see Clevenger as a Yankee. Now, I know that may sound like, where did that come from? Well, it makes perfect sense. First of all, have you been overwhelmed with starting pitching in New York not named Garrett Cole? Okay. And there is definitely a rift within the Cleveland team if Plesac and Clevenger come back. So what makes sense is a trade that benefits everybody. Now, would Cleveland be interested in having Clint Frazier come back? Remember, he was drafted by the Tribe, came up in their farm system, traded away to the Yankees a few years ago. He is scalding hot right now for the Yankees. But I don't know if the Yankees want to trade Frazier. It's almost like they finally give him a chance to play every day, and he is taking full advantage of it. But there are other players. Ford is a player. Andujar is a player. Michael King is a player. They've got Sessa in the bullpen. They've got some arms and they got some talent that they could send over to Cleveland in a trade that would make a lot of sense for both teams. It would calm the feelings of the Tribe. Now, look, the Tribe, they had a great weekend. If you look at the standings this morning, which we're getting ready to do, and you see where Cleveland is in the standings, even though they've been without Plesac, even though they've been without Clevenger, their last turn, they both skipped their last turn. Cleveland is only one game behind Minnesota. They sit at 13-9. The Minnesota Twins are 14-8. They're one game out. Right now, if the season ended, they would be a wild card winner. With all the turmoil that was created in the offseason, talking about possibly trading Frankie Lindor and not doing it. And now you've got this situation. It just makes sense to me that Cleveland will look to shop both Plesac and Clevenger. And Durf's in the room on StreamYard. Durf, good morning. He's asked me a question about releasing Bichette or Albies. I'll get to that in just a moment. That'll be the next thing we pick up. How about that? But look for Cleveland to trade both pitchers. I'll look for the Yankees to get one, and who might get the other? Well, aren't the Braves a great choice? Or another choice, the Astros. The Braves, though, have young talent that they can also send back to Cleveland, as the Yankees do. So I'm looking for one of those guys to go to Atlanta, the other one to go to New York. I think that's going to be your trade, maybe not even waiting till the deadline. Maybe that happens this week. We shall see. So over the weekend, I'll go ahead and start the injury report. Look, you talk about Bichette, Toronto shortstop extraordinaire. He was having just an absolutely incredible start to his season. Bo Bichette was hitting 361, or is hitting 361. He scored 11 runs, 5 homers, 13 RBIs, 4 stolen bases. Saturday felt something going on with his knee. He had an MRI yesterday. He has a sprained right knee, and the reports are out of Toronto that he could be out a month. A month. So what do you do with Bichette? Well, the obvious choice is if you can put him on an IL slot, you put him on your IL. But if he's going to be out for a month, that means mid-September. The baseball season ends the end of September. So you've only got him for 2 weeks, if he comes back at all. I think if there's someone out there that you can pick up to take his place, that you do it. I think you release him. And the same with Ozzie Albies. This is a short year. Look, not only are they going to be out with the injuries, they're going to be out of sync too. Timing takes a little bit of time to come back. We know that. We know the pitchers were ahead of the hitters at the beginning of the season. Happens every year. Hitters are now starting to catch up. But the long layoff for Bichette and Albies will mean that their timing has to be recreated, if you will, reinstituted. So we look at replacing these guys in fantasy. Now, there's the challenge, because depending on how deep your league is, depends on who may be available. I want to offer you a few players this morning that may be middle infield eligible, ready to roll. And let's see what you think about my suggestions. Okay, let's start in the great state of DC with the Nationals. And we know over the weekend that Starlin Castro broke his wrist, probably out for the year, and they bring up a young kid by the name of Luis Garcia. That's right, Luis Garcia. And in his first game, he goes, "Good morning, Phil Chaplin. How are you doing, my brother?" They bring up Luis Garcia, and in his first game, he goes 2 for 5 with a double and a run scored. Now, Garcia has a plus hit tool. He's going to get the opportunity. He and Carter Kieboom, both of those guys, I suggest if they are available, take a look at them. There are other players as well, because on this same Nationals team, there's also Asdrubal Cabrera. Don't know about his availability, but certainly someone to take a look at. Other players, how about Nick Ahmed? He's a shortstop, hitting 233, not a great average, plays every day, 2 homers, 11 RBIs. He scored 13 runs. He's got 2 stolen bases. over his last 5 games, 21 at bats, 7 hits. That's a .333 average with 6 RBIs. Ahmed will play every day. Again, if you're looking for a filler for a Bichette or an Albies, Ahmed is yet another option. I'm going to take you to Detroit. Now, this is a real dark horse, okay? But you know I love dark horses. Bill Chaplin, you know I love dark horses. So as we look at the lineup, if you will, for Detroit, they have a shortstop, okay? Now, I'm not talking about Nico Goodrum, who just went out with an injury. I'm not talking about Candelaria, who just, I guess, became the first baseman, right? I mean, they're going to move him to first. He's going to play every day, it seems. I'm talking about a guy by the name of Willie Castro. I want you to keep your eye on him. Now, he's not off to a great start. He's hitting .286 on the year, 1 homer, 3 RBIs, but he has started the last 3 games for the Tigers. He can still use some bases. He has a little bit of pop. He's a real dark horse. I looked this morning. He's only owned in 5% of all fantasy leagues, 0.5%, excuse me, 0.5% in ESPN leagues. Bill Chaplin, I'm headed to the Miami Marlins next. I want to talk about the Phillies and the Marlins back to back after I finish with the Tigers. So we're going to talk about looking at these players to take up the slack. Now, it's going to be, am I saying these guys are as good as Bichette? No. But looking at who can take their place is something to consider because, again, some fantasy playoff leagues will begin in a couple of weeks at the same time the trade deadline begins. Let's talk about those Marlins for a minute. Wow. How many of you guys thought, let's look at the standings. I always like looking at the standings. And as we get deep into the season, it's a really good time to do it. And as we look at the standings this morning in the National League East, atop the standings, the Miami Marlins, 9-6, only played 15 games, but they're tied with the Braves for first place, a .600 winning percentage. And if the season ends today, it doesn't. If the season ends today, Miami's in the playoffs. What do we attribute that to? Well, several things. First of all, let's take a look at some of their hitters. Villar's not really been that great. 14 for 61. He's only hitting, .230? 1 homer, but he does have 6 stolen bases. But a key player in that lineup is Jesus Aguilar. Owned in probably less than 50% of fantasy leagues, Aguilar, as we look this morning, is hitting .286 on the year, 4 home runs, 15 RBIs, doesn't strike out a lot, has really gotten off to a great start for the Marlins. Now, the pitching has been the real reason, and there's optimism here. First of all, their ace, Sandy Alcantara, who's currently on the injured list, has been cleared for reinstatement and will begin working at the Marlins alternative site today. Remember, Alcantara was one of the Marlins who tested positive for COVID, pitched 1 game, July 24th against the Phillies at Philadelphia, went 6 2/3, gave up only 3 hits, struck out 7 batters. But there's a lot more to this Marlins team than just that player. How about the guy who pitched yesterday? Elieser Hernandez. Write that name down. Elieser Hernandez. Yesterday, he pitched against a pretty staunch Braves lineup. And he went 5 innings, giving up only 3 hits, no earned runs, no walks, and 9 strikeouts. Let me repeat that. 5 innings, no walks, 9 strikeouts. Eliezer Hernandez throws a really hard fastball. He's got a good change of pace, pitching really well. This Marlins team, look, that ain't the only one. I want to talk about Pablo Lopez for a moment. Lopez is 2-1 on the season, 19 strikeouts, a 2.25 ERA. Against the same Braves over the weekend, Lopez goes 6 innings, gives up 2 earned runs, no walks, and 8 strikeouts. So what you've got going on in Miami right now are some young stud pitchers who throw hard, who strike out batters, and when you're missing bats, you're in the game, and they're doing it without probably, arguably, their best 2 pitchers, that being Alcantara and the other being Caleb Smith. Now, I'm not sure about a return date for Smith yet, but can you imagine these same Marlins with those 2 pitchers back on the team? Kinsler at the back end of that bullpen is not a bad option. Let's talk about some more players. How about Clint Frazier and what he's doing for the New York Yankees? I mean, Frazier sort of banished to oblivion, right? And then he comes on, getting finally the opportunity, and oh my, has he taken advantage of that opportunity like crazy. Let's look at some numbers for Mr. Frazier for just a moment. So last night, probably his worst game. He's hitting .533 since the call up, 2 homers, 8 RBIs. Last night went 1 for 4, but in the 4 games he's played since the call up, since the injury to Aaron Judge, he has had 15 at bats and he has had 8 hits. 8 for 15, a hit in every game. A couple of games where he had 3 hits. The other 2 games he had 1 hit each. So the question is, in fantasy, how much stock do you put in Clint Frazier? Another player on the Yankees who has really benefited from the misfortune to Stanton, the misfortune to Judge, is Mike Tauchman. Are you a Tauchman believer? Over the weekend so far against Boston, he has gone 6 for 12, 500 average, 4 RBIs. On the year, he also has 4 stolen bases. On the year, he's hitting .357. Bill Chaplin just posted, Frazier is a poor man's Stanton. I'm wondering, is Stanton a rich man's Frazier? I mean, at least I feel like some of these guys get on the field and it's a glass house. Frazier seems to be durable. Now he's getting the opportunity. Tauchman getting the opportunity. Judge a little upset that he wasn't able to play over the weekend. Judge said, I feel great. But Frazier has really produced. He's got more power, obviously, than Tauchman. Tauchman more of a contact hitter. I want to talk about 2 rookies who came up over the weekend. How do you rate Alec Bohm? How do you rate Dylan Carlson? It appears that both Bohm and Carlson will be getting regular at-bats for the Phillies and Cardinals, respectively. Now, I like Bohm, 3rd overall pick in the 2018 draft. The only thing that concerns me about Bohm is not playing time, but 2 things. I wonder how much average he'll hit for, but even more importantly than that, where he hits in the Philly order. Now, he'll probably get a day off every now and then, as everyone does. But I really like the opportunity that the Phillies are giving Alec Bohm. Got some good power, a good hit tool, doesn't strike out a lot. And then there's Dylan Carlson. Now, Carlson, a top 20 MLB prospect anyway, called up now with St. Louis playing basically every day. every day. Dylan Carlson has all 5 tools. How much value do you put on a Dylan Carlson for the rest of this season in fantasy? First of all, he batted 6th in his first game. I look for Carlson as time goes on to move up in the Cardinal batting order. The Cardinals have been a different team, it looks like. They had all that time off, and hey, they're winning. They're going to play the Cubs this week. 2 doubleheaders, one today, one on Wednesday. Carlson's going to get at bats, consistent at bats. Power, average, speed. I just think that the opportunity he's going to be given in the situation he's in, I believe Carlson will be a producer. Now, Chaplin just put something about Tyler O'Neill. My concern with Tyler O'Neill has been batting average, bat to ball. He's a masher, no doubt about it. But I think Carlson and O'Neill coexist, Chaplin. I think Carlson and O'Neill play at the same time, Chaplin. I think they complement each other. I think one helps the other. I think you're going to see better numbers from O'Neill with Carlson there and better numbers from Carlson with O'Neill there. We shall see. And you also posted, Chappie, food for thought. Frazier is Austin Meadows. Wow. But you know, there are a lot of similarities. Maybe there Austin Meadows steals a few more bags, right? But quick bats. I mean, check out the bat speed that Frazier brings to the plate. Similar, if you will, to Meadows. And I just think that what he brings to that Yankee lineup is an infusion of energy, but most importantly, an infusion of great talent. You can bring all the energy in the world, but if you aren't a good player, then what good is it? I want to stay on those Cardinals for a minute because I think in fantasy, if you can add Cardinals the rest of the regular season, that's a brilliant thing to do because they play so many games. Look, they've got to make up. They only played 5 games before Saturday. Only 5. So now we have to look at the games they have. If they're going to get in 55 games, I doubt they do. But they've got to get in their games now 52 now, between now and the end of September. And it's August the 18th, 17th. So we got 13 days left in August, 30 days in September. So you got to get over 50 games in 43 days. So let's take a look at some of these Cardinal players who probably have underperformed a little bit, could be a great fantasy value as we head towards the playoffs. And not even to mention Adam Wainwright, where if you didn't see him on Saturday, looked incredible. And with 7-inning doubleheaders, you pitch 5 innings, you only have a bullpen for 2. I mean, his curveball looked electric. He was spotting it. I just think Wainwright's a great pitcher to have. All right. Let's look at some of these bats. We've already talked about Carlson. Touched on O'Neill a little bit. Tyler O'Neill hitting .240, 3 homers, 6 RBIs. Now remember, he's only played 8 games and has 3 homers. He went 1 for 3 in the first game of the doubleheader on Saturday, 2 for 4 in the second game, and hit a home run. Went 0 for 3 yesterday. But that makes O'Neill 3 for 10 since starting back. He has an impressive barrel rate, I'll save that. I won't get into that too much, Chappie. Incredible power, and he's available in ESPN leagues. He's only owned in 10% of ESPN leagues. 10%. How about some more players on the Cardinals? How about Colton Wong? He's going to play every day. I know he's only hitting 192 right now, but he's going to steal some bases. He's got a little pop in that bat. Available in a lot of leagues. And then Tommy Edman, not off to a great start after the break, only 1 for 10 over the weekend. He did score 3 runs. He is eligible at probably 3 positions now because he's going to play shortstop, third base, second base. A great bat to baller, a great speed on the bases, a little bit of pop. I think you look strongly at adding these Cardinals to your fantasy team going forward. And if you're in a daily or a weekly league, look at who they're playing. Okay, so this week, Cardinals have 2 doubleheaders with the Cubs. So why not go and pick up some Cubs too? Opportunity. I'm big on opportunity in fantasy. You know that. Let's take a look at some of these little bears. One player that I've picked up on some of my fantasy teams, and I've talked about him. I've heard my friend Phil Chaplin talk about him, Mr. Happ. Now, Happ is an interesting player in that I like to see what coaching staff and managers say about him. Okay. Ian Happ, it's been made very clear by his manager, is the center fielder for the Chicago Cubs. I do know this too. He's hitting .310, 10 runs scored, 3 home runs, 11 RBIs, and a stolen base. Hits in 3 of his last 4 games, 5 hits in the last 4 games, 4 RBIs, only owned in ESPN leagues in 41% of the leagues. Look, that to me is as ridiculous a number as I've seen. Ian Happ needs to be owned in every league. I don't care if you're a mixed league. I don't care if you're an 8-team, 10-team, 15-team. Ian Happ is a bat that will hit, and he needs to be owned in every league. Now, I want to ask you this question. On the other side of that pendulum, how concerned are you that Kris Bryant is only hitting 182, 2 home runs, and 4 RBIs? He was moved to that leadoff spot, and frankly, it's not a good fit. When do you think Bryant gets moved back to the 2 or 3 hole in that lineup? And who would be a good candidate to then lead off? I will proffer to you. Let's put Ian Happ in that leadoff spot. Had a little bit of water under the bridge now. He's gotten used to his environment. He's been successful. Putting him in the leadoff is not going to blow his mind or blow his world. Drop Bryant to 3. Put Rizzo second. And watch the Cubs drop. Watch them just blow everything up. And you got to remember this too. Javi Baez, the perennial all-star, is hitting .203. Baez is 0 for his last 15 and didn't start yesterday. I'm a believer in Baez. I think it's a bad start, but Baez will come around. And here's the thing about the Cubs. Even with Bryant and Baez around the Mendoza line, when you go and you look at the standings this morning in the National League Central, you see the Cubs are 13-6 with a grossly underperforming Baez, a grossly underperforming Kris Bryant. They're 13-6. They're 3.5 games ahead of second place Milwaukee and St. Louis, 4.5 games ahead of the Reds, and 8.5 games ahead of the Pirates. And they're not even hitting, except for Happ. A lot of the other players on the team are underperforming. Now, Rizzo hitting 246, 5 homers, 9 RBIs. Contreras hitting 233, 2 homers, 7 RBIs. What I'm getting at is they're not even hitting as a team yet. And imagine the Chicago Cubs when they do start to really crank out the hits. Wow. It's great to be with you today. I hope everybody has a great Monday. A lot of games to watch. Will the Yankees get a 4-game sweep over the Red Sox? I say yes. Look for the trade winds to be blowing this week. I want to thank you guys for being with me, both in the chat room on Lenny Melnick Fantasy Sports and here on, I guess you're watching me live if you're watching the video on Facebook or on our other networks. So I'll be back again tomorrow morning. Just a reminder, Tuesday night, great night for fantasy sports. 7 o'clock, Bill Chappell. 9 o'clock, Chappie and I will close off your day. Arnie and Chappie After Dark. We have been just inundated with you guys watching and giving us feedback. It's been awesome. Look forward to it tomorrow night at 9 o'clock. Everybody have a great day. I'll be talking to you tomorrow morning right here on Arnie's Fantasy World.